qui font baisser les miens, un rire qui se perd sur sa bouche. Voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, qu'il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il m'a dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, que ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. C'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, l'a juré pour la vie. Et dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens dans moi mon cœur qui bat. Des nuits d'amour à plus finir, un grand bonheur qui prend sa place, des ennuis, des chagrins s'effacent, heureux, heureux, sans mourir. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il m'a dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. C'est toi pour moi, moi pour toi dans la vie. Tu me l'as dit, m'as juré pour la vie. Dès que je t'aperçois, alors je sens dans moi mon cœur qui bat.
Hi there, my name is Kevin Zraly and welcome to the Delaware and Hudson Canal Museum. This was, when I got here back in 1970, it was a restaurant called the Dupuy Canal House Tavern. And right here is where I was the bartender. And so many great times being a bartender, waiter here at the restaurant. We received a 4-star rating from Craig Claiborne of the New York Times back in 1970, in March of 1970, and I stayed here from 1970 to 1976, and then I went to Windows on the World restaurant on top of One World Trade Center in New York City. It was a great restaurant. This was a magical restaurant here, the Dupuy Canal House Tavern, created by John Novi, who bought the house in 1964, started renovating it in 1968, and then opened it in 1969. This is sort of where I learned all about wine. This area here was my first wine cellar, and we had all the wine stored on its side here, and of course we'd come over and get it, and that's how we'd bring it to the customers. Back in 1970, we got this 4-star rating from the New York Times, and the local college came by, Ulster County Community College, and said, "Why, you got this 4-star rating, you must know something about wine and food or cheese." And he said, "Yeah, we know a little bit about it." And so they said, "Okay, why don't you teach a class?" So in 1971, my first wine class that I ever taught was with John Novi on cheese. He did cheese, I did wine. And we thought, he didn't really know much about cheese, I really didn't know much about wine, but we pulled it off. We thought we were gonna have 6 people, but we filled up the whole main dining room here. I think we had like 30 people, and all in, at the tables, etc. And this is sort of where I stood, a little bit further back, and had my first wine class. And so that was in 1971, and now here we are in 2022, and I've had 25,000 students. This fireplace, though, there's 4 of them in the house, and they're fantastic, and they are usable. I was the one in charge. I had to do get all the wood in here and do it that way. Eventually, it became a dining room, and I think I probably had 100 meals in here in this particular room. This room, amazingly, was the original kitchen for the Dupuy Canal House Tavern. You can see the 1797 beams that were here, and this was extremely small. The stove was here and vented out that way, and the dishwasher was over here, and we were doing 100 to 120 covers a night, so you can imagine we got to know each other very well. So I'm actually walking. This was an outside door here. Everything that you see right now was built in the 70s. We opened this in 1973 as the new kitchen. It was actually nominated for the New York State Council on the Arts Award, and John brought all these beams in. The bricks that you see came from the Roundout and also from the Hutton Brickyards. And over here was all the cooking was done here. But the amazing thing, look at how much more space we have than the small kitchen that we had before. And up here on the top, this was actually the most amazing thing, because John also built a balcony that's back here that people could actually walk from the second floor and come and watch cooking going on. And then also he had a table, which was spectacular. You're talking about, this is long before people had, eating in open kitchens, so to speak. So in 1973, this was an open kitchen. It had a table here. If you wanted to eat in the kitchen, you could, and watch all the chaos on a Saturday night. But that made the fun of it. Some of you might know I'm in the wine business, and this actually here was one of my first wine lists, and I don't know if you can get a close eye, but looking at the prices of these wines, and it's on slate. This is how it was presented, and I found out recently that I thought I painted it on, but actually that's whiteout, ladies and gentlemen. So whiteout lasted 50 years, and so my whole career with wine began at the Dupuy Canal House Tavern, now the Delaware and Hudson Canal Museum. What a great and magical time it was for me to work here from 1970 to 1976 in the early days of the restaurant. But now coming back here and looking at the Delaware and Hudson Canal Museum and how the place has been transformed into, as you've seen, beauty and art still are here. The feeling is still here. I hope that you've enjoyed a little tour around the Canal House.
Well, here I am again. I'm at home now. I'm in New Paltz, New York, Friday night in December. And thank you. This is one of 1,000 lectures. Actually, it's the third lecture of the 1,000 that I've already promised the Canal Museum. And I thank you all for coming. I think we all love what's going on there. And thank you to many people, but Peter Bienstock was the hero here and got everything together. There's so many other players, and you know who you are. And thank you for that filming. And it's good that it's history so people can understand what the Canal Museum was as a restaurant way back when. Anyhow, I'm thirsty. Tonight's topic is going to be wines of France. And I want you to meet the producer of my show. Now, just to give you an idea, I used to be called the Cellar Master, and now I'm the Zoom Master. And for the last 2 years, I've been doing these Zoom classes from where I am right now. This is my studio. There's nobody else here. It's just me and you out there. And so we've had 5,000 students from around the country and the world. Actually, we've had some other people from outside, from France, etc., take the class. A little different timing for them to drink wine, but the French, they love their wines, as we're going to talk about. So this is what I do now. I'm loving it. I don't have to leave New Paltz, but I'd like you to meet Allison. And Allison, why don't you come on and tell them how to do this if they've never done this before? And Allison is not just my creative. Oh, there she is. And I always want to know where you are, because last time I talked to you, you were in Lima, Peru. Okay, that was over Thanksgiving. And where are you right now?
Now I'm back home in Mexico City.
Back home. Actually, you're from Connecticut. It sounds like you're a native, oh yeah, Mexico City. I was born and raised here, but you're from Connecticut, George Washington University. Is that correct? I'm bringing that up, ladies and gentlemen, because George Washington, we're going to get to this, because I just did a lecture for, and Allison helped me on that, a lecture for the Museum of the American Revolution in Philadelphia last week. And it was quite interesting. I was a history major. So George Washington actually left office in 1797, same house vintage of the Canal Museum. And then John Adams came in. And so I don't want to bring that up, you're George Washington, but not only that, she's a lover of wine. She's taken her second level of WSET, which is a big thing, going to become a master sommelier. So why don't we tell them, because some of you have maybe not used this kind of thing. I didn't know what Zoom was 2 years ago either. So how can they do questions and stuff like that?
Yeah, so welcome everyone. Really nice to see some familiar names here too. If you can go ahead, if you want, on the bottom of your screen, there's a chat and then there's a Q&A. So the chat we're going to be using when Kevin is walking through the wines, he'll ask you what notes you might be getting or if you have anything that you'd pair it with. So it'd be great if you can use the chat to just basically chat amongst yourselves and with us. We'll be able to read everything that you share, and it'd be really great. Also, make sure that when you use the chat that you're selecting everyone rather than hosts and panelists so that everyone can see what you're typing and not just Kevin and myself. And then if you have any questions, using the Q&A on the bottom of your screen is the best way to do that. So Q&A versus chat is because we don't want to lose any questions in the chat. So sometimes when the chat is moving quickly, questions might be skipped if we can't see them. So if you can use the Q&A, that would be great. And I think that's really it so far.
Well, maybe let's find out where some of the people are from. Show them how to do that. Here we go. Thank you.
Here we go.
Jim is one of my best students in my regular class. Jim, you're taking every class I've ever done, so thank you. And Sacramento, California, this man, come on, he's up to, what time is it there? 2 o'clock.
Well, he just said, Jim from Sacramento, drinking a little early today.
Yeah, well, it's TGIF.
It's Friday.
Villanova. We got people from all over the country, and thank you. And you just keep putting your name in there so we know who you are. And I'm thirsty. We only have an hour. This is the 1 hour French wine expert. Impossible. You're going to come back and join us as well, correct? Robin O'Connor, I just saw there. A lot of are actually interesting. Some of my students that have been taking the classes for a couple of years. So I'm going to show everybody, which I don't know if you can all see this, but I'm going to open a bottle of champagne right now. And let me just do something on my computer if I can right now. See if this works. Okay, it didn't work, but that's okay. I'm still with you. This is probably the most dangerous part of my job. And I by the way, this is ice cold. And when I'm really ice cold, you submerge the champagne in ice and water. And remember, it's the ice that chills the water that chills the wine. And I'm talking about submerged because all the pressure is at the top. And we're having our Tattingers. Some of you are already opened it. Some of you already finished the bottle, but that's okay. That's what this class is all about. But I want you to take, I've taken the foil off the top. And I normally do this standing up for many, many reasons. And if you can see the wire on the top, it's a 10 count. Watch out, any bottle of champagne, any bottle of really good sparkling wine. I'm putting my finger on the top. It's never going to leave there because that's where the danger is. 90 pounds per square inch in this bottle of wine. Remember, your car tire is like 32 pounds per square inch. So this is explosive. So I'm putting my hand over the top. I got my finger on the top, and I'm going to turn the first wire 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the next thing is 4. 1 on off to the sides. 2. You've already done this, many of you. 3 and 4 clicks. You hear the click? Now I'm just putting my finger there. Never do I take my finger off. And at this point in time, this is coming up the holiday seasons, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to have any kinds of explosions in your house that could ruin your dinner. So I have my towel here. I'm putting it over the top, and I'm going to turn the bottle one way. All right. And the cork the other way. And I'm doing this quietly so that you can hear what's going on. And there's another reason I do it this way, because if you do it this way, you don't lose any of the bubbles, and you can have the champagne just put back in your refrigerator. Believe it or not, it will last 3 days. I don't know if you heard anything, but it certainly wasn't a big pop. Now, I use this glass, but believe it or not, you could use an all-purpose glass here right now. This is Tattinger. And Tattinger, by the way, predates the Canal Museum, 1734. So it's been around, and I used to do the whole president's thing. Champagne has been served in the White House from the very beginning with George Washington and John Adams. And then Tom Jefferson, he was the man. Tom Jefferson was the founder of the American wine culture, if you will. Of course, he was the minister of France. By the way, this is all in my mind here right now because I just did that major lecture there in Philadelphia. Anyhow, watch what I'm doing. I'm waiting. You always get ahead on there. And so I'm going to wait a little bit. I am now going to pour a little bit more in, probably half a glass. Of course, I can't really consume much because I am with you. So I toast to the Delaware and Hudson Canal Museum and to all of the people who are involved. So let's click glasses. Remember, there are evil spirits, even at the Canal Museum. I know where they are. A toast to all of you for being here. Give the wine a taste. What am I looking for? First of all, yeast. How do they make this bottle of champagne? Well, first they make it into wine. And you'll see in a moment, the three major grapes are Chardonnay, white, but the other one, major grape, Pinot Noir, red. They take the skin off the Pinot Noir grape, and that's why you could just get the white pulp. And there's another red grape called Pinot Meunier. Now they blend those three together, or sometimes if they're making a Blanc de Blanc, for example, it'd be white wine of white grapes, or Blanc de Noir is white wine of red grapes, and that would be all Pinot Noir or all Chardonnay, but most of this is a blend. For example, this is 40% Chardonnay that you have here, 30%, 35% Pinot Noir, and then 25% Pinot Meunier. Just to give you an idea, they blend it all, they make it into wine, and they put it, by the way, all champagne is sparkling wines, but not all sparkling wines are champagne. This is a very delimited area, and we'll show you on a map later on where it is. I'm sure many of you have been there. Bottom line, they make this wine, really good wine, by the way, and they put it into the bottle. Now they want a secondary fermentation. So into this bottle, they add sugar and yeast. Sugar and yeast equals 1 part alcohol and 1 part carbon dioxide. Sugar plus yeast equals 1 part alcohol plus 1 part carbon dioxide. So you're getting a little bit more alcohol, and you're also, that's where you're getting the fizz from, if you will, the sparkling, the bubbles or whatever. And so now they put a cap on it, like a bottle cap. And you see these racks here, by the way, which were developed by Madame Clicquot. I'm sure you've heard of the Clicquot champagne, because that was like 1792. Clicquot came into being. And Madame Clicquot got these riddling racks. That's what they're called. And I can't do it right now with this wine. I could probably do it with this bottle, because they're already open though. So they take the wine, the champagne, and they stick it in there. You see into those little racks there. And there is somebody called the Riddler. The Riddler, and that person, by the way, these jobs are available if you're interested, turns the bottle a quarter of the way a day and keeps going for like about 6 months. That's why these jobs are available. And then, by the way, some of them can do 10,000 bottles a month. Keep that a day. I'm so sorry. It's 10,000 bottles a day, not a month. And eventually, boom, the wine is standing straight up, and all the sediment has come down to the bottom of this top of the bottle. Now they turn it back up. They take that cap off, shoot it off, and what happens? All the sediment's gone. And that's the whole purpose of that method champenois, that it is called. And then they put the cork in. And by the way, I'm just looking for my cork. I've lost my cork, but a lot of people have said that about me. I'm going to show you something. How do I know it's fresh merchandise? Because this is a non-vintage champagne, and 90% of all champagne is non-vintage. And I put the cork, and you should have it there as well. You can't put it back in. If you can't put it back in, that means it's fresh merchandise. So I'd like to go back to that, Allison, to that other slide that you had there, which was showing the different levels of different, we call them sweetness and dryness levels. And this one, if you take a look at your bottle, it's called Taittinger, and it's Brut La Française. That's their trade name, but Brut is what I'm looking for. And this is the levels that you have here of, if you will, sweetness. And the Brut Nature and the Extra Brut, you very rarely see them. The number one is the Brut. And it's dry, but you can see that it's got a little bit of sweetness, and not a lot. In the old days, champagne was sweet. And the wine that I just did for the presidents was Schramsberg. That's the one that Nixon took to China with him. And the number one sparkling wine that I have seen over the last 40 years served at the White House, and I've gone through hundreds of menus, was the Schramsberg Demi-Sec. And we serve that and a little bit of sweetness going on there as well. Hey, guys, there's a lot of stuff to talk about champagne. I love it. I'll drink it all the time, but just some fun people involved in champagne. I'm sure you remember James Bond. Maybe one of your first movies in the house, and let's show them that as well. You remember, what did he do? Which one? Oh, there's Winston Churchill. Can't do anything without Winston. And by the way, he would have champagne in the morning. not just in victory or defeat. He would have champagne in the morning. And of course, our James Bond, Sean Connery, liked his Dom Perignon, which, by the way, did not exist back in the 1797 period, but Moet and Chandon did. James Bond has a way of saying things about his how he likes it chilled. And we have a question, all right? Charles Heidsieck, Champagne Charlie, by the way, that was a big thing in the beginning of the 20th century. Champagne Charlie would come along. Allison, do you have that picture of James Bond? Because I was in that picture of James Bond back in the early part of the show. And James Bond basically had to have his Dom Perignon at a certain temperature. And there are actually people, oh, there we are, my dear girl. There are some things that just aren't done, such as drinking Dom Perignon 53 above the temperature of 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Goldfinger, how many people remember Goldfinger? One of my first movies when I was in 8th grade. And I don't know how they let me go. And actually, you see that's not Betty Davis in the top picture, but she needed a glass of wine. A glass of wine helps in a woman's life, in a man's life. That happens as well. I drink it a lot. And that's Marilyn Monroe. And actually, I'm going to the Carlisle Cafe next week. And that's where actually JFK had his, he had an apartment there, big apartment within the Carlisle Hotel. And I auctioned off his wines, the JFK wines, probably 25 years ago. Supposedly, they showed me where Marilyn would come in the back door down in the cellar to go visit somebody. I don't know who it was, but also was supposed to have taken a bath in champagne. So I don't know, it doesn't really excite me, but I'm just letting you know what the scoop is out there. I'm going to take another glass of my champagne. I would like to go now to French wines, because that's what not that we're not going to French wines, but I'd like you to see what we're talking about today. We're going to cover a few areas. We got champagne. Sip again. Please keep trying it. It just makes everybody happy. By the way, the nice thing about champagne, it's low in alcohol. 12.5. And so that's why it's fresh. It's fruity. I'm getting apples. Try it again. I'm getting pear. Pear, a lot of pear. Acidity, and that's what you're looking for on the sides of champagne. You want to have that acidity. And then again, the question comes up, and I'm going to throw this out to the audience here right now, since you're all there. You're drinking this. What kind of food would you have with it? What makes this champagne special? I like to start it off at the beginning of a meal. What I learned from doing this president's thing last week is they would always actually do the toast at the end of the meal. Oh, Robin, you were there with the, I was trying to, if you have that, I was trying to think of the wines that we did for JFK that we sold, but it was something like $50,000 back in those days. Anyhow, the acidity, the brioche is what I'm getting. Like you can actually get it into the yeast a little bit, like something is cooking or whatever, because they added the yeast there. It's dry. This is dry. And I love it as an aperitif. As I mentioned, in the presidents always would toast at the end of a meal, but some of the presidents drank too much at the beginning of the meal and flubbed it at the end. I'm not going to even do some of the stuff that happened, but that's why it was Jimmy Carter made a mistake too, but he started toasting at the beginning, but the champagne had been poured. He toasted anyhow, so he said why he did it, because he didn't want to flub later on. Oysters, Peter Beanstalk, my hedonistic friend, and Helena is there as well. Foie gras, caviar. Okay, Peter, we get it. Hopefully that's what you're having right now. Okay, I don't know if there's anything else to say about champagne. There was a champagne shortage during the pandemic, and it's my go-to. The Taittinger or the Veuve Clicquot. I can mention Bellecote Salmon. You all have your own favorite. Tell me what your favorite is, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so let us take a look at a map of France to see where we're going today. See how much time we have. Oh my gosh, we got to keep moving along here. I get carried away. So there it is. I know you've all been there. And actually, when I was at the Canal House, when I was at the Canal House in 1972, I hitchhiked to California to study wines because I had no money. Then I don't have any money now, but it's beside the point. I hitchhiked to California. But once I graduated, New Paltz, our beautiful state university here, I actually went to France and lived in France. And so again, looking at the menu, we're going to show you the real menu of the Canal. That's at the Canal Museum. So if you see, we just did Champagne, an hour and a half east of Paris. And by the way, you can drop the kids off at Euro Disney if you want on the way. But Champagne is Champagne is Champagne. Then to the left of that is the Loire Valley. Some of my favorite wines, white wines, primarily 75% white wine in the Loire Valley. Favorite wines are Sancerre and Puy-Fumé. Both, by the way, made with 100% Sauvignon Blanc. That is a law. If it says Sancerre on the label, it has to contain 100% or Puy-Fumé. And if you go towards the Atlantic Ocean there, Muscadet. And talking about clams and oysters, that's one of my favorite wines to have with a wine, clams and oysters and the Muscadet. Okay, we're not doing that today. And we're not doing Alsace, which of course is on the west side. And Alsace actually was part of Germany before World War I, except there's a big difference. The German wines are lighter in alcohol and also have a little bit of sweetness to them. And the Alsace wines are dry, 99% dry. And then we go to the next region that we're going to. I'm going to hold off on Burgundy for a second, and we're going to end off with a great Bordeaux, Chateau Gloria. I just want you to see where everything's located. And before the Gloria, we're going way down south, which means what, ladies and gentlemen? Heat, sun, and we're going to have all that richness coming through, and also higher alcohol, and of course the great wines, the rosés of Provence. So there is France. We're going to go to Burgundy right now because the wine that you have. The next wine you have is from a famous and favorite producer, Louis Latour. And let's take a look at a map of Burgundy. But you know what? Pick up the wine first. I know you're all thirsty. It's almost a half hour into this. We're almost a half hour to go. First of all, it's 100% Chardonnay. And nowhere on the label is it going to tell you that. Because the French don't tell you the name of the grape. The Italians don't tell you the name of the grape. But Spanish, they don't tell you the name of the grape. They tell you the name of the region. And the region, for example, in Italy, they don't call it Sangiovese, they call it Brunello di Montalcino, but that's the name of the wine. In Rioja, they don't call it Tempranillo, which is the name of the grape, they call it Rioja. In Burgundy, it's called Burgundy. Burgundy whites, 100% Chardonnay, a law. Burgundy reds, 100% Pinot Noir, a law, except for a region called Beaujolais, which we'll show you on the map here in a second. And so this is 100% Chardonnay and Louis Latour, and it's coming from a village called Pernon-Vergelès. And actually, it's a very unknown village, but this is what's happening in Burgundy. The quality of the wines are outrageous. And this is a 2019, a great vintage. Let's take a smell. I think this is what sort of knocked me out a little bit. I was a white wine drinker first until Peter Bienstock forced me into drinking red wine and old wine. He would give me old wine and I had to drink it. And but I started off with white. Actually, I started off with German whites when I was young, 18 or 19 years old, because they had the sweetness. It was there for me. I enjoyed it. Then the next wine was here, white Burgundy. And what are you getting in here, ladies and gentlemen? Anybody want to give me some thoughts that they have here? Apple. Apple's one of the things I'm going to get, as I'm going to get it in the champagne as well. Citrus, like lemon, citrus. Now, we haven't done this before, unless you did our show once before last year in November. Put your hand over the top. Put your hand over the top, and here, right? This is all the next three wines we're going to do with this. My hand over the top, ready? 1, 2, 3, open it up. Now there is the citrus. There's the lemon I'm talking about. It wasn't so pronounced at the beginning. Ripe apples, not just apples, but ripe apples. A little bit of earthiness. We call it earthiness or minerality or whatever, but it's clean. It's enticing. It's not overpowering. It's not California Chardonnay. I hate to put it that way, but it's not the alcohol on here. I'm looking right now is 14%. 14. That's actually pretty high, to be honest with you. But I'm not getting it in the wine. But a toast, again, a toast. Everybody, you got to toast somebody who you're with, whether you like them or not. Give them a toast. Get those evil spirits gone and give the wine a try. This time, leave the wine in your mouth 3 seconds. Ready? Go. Allison, let's show a map of Burgundy. Wow. That's amazing. And there's oak in here, but it's what I'm going to call the kiss of oak. 8 months in French oak. There's the bottle of wine. Louis Latour, as I mentioned, is the name of the producer. He owns a lot of land, and he also buys wine from other people. And there where we are, we just showed it in France where Burgundy was, sort of landlocked, if you will, taking a look at it. I guess there's a Mediterranean influence from the Mediterranean coming up, but take a look at it. That's where the wine Chablis, not Ernest and Julio Gallo Chablis, which reminds me, I remember being at the Canal House. Nobody drank wine in 1970. Never thought I was a little nuts, and maybe I am nuts. But I remember I'd make, as the bartender, whiskey sours. What was it? Pink Ladies. Anybody ever remember Pink Lady? Or there was some crazy thing. Of course, always a mint julep. And my friend from Stone Ridge, Paul Sturgis, would bring down all the mint and get me going on Thursday. But old fashions, all that kind of stuff. They weren't drinking wine. I had a bottle of Almaden. You might remember that as a jug wine, if you will, from California. And it was in a jug, like a half gallon, and it was underneath the bar. And when they asked for a glass of white, I wasn't a wine person at that time. I had to take the dust off so nobody saw it. And then I poured into the glass and it was yellow, and I didn't know at that time. And of course I wasn't chilling it either. So that's probably another reason people didn't drink wine, because I didn't know what I was doing. But the real Chablis is in here, as you can see, is Burgundy France, 100% Chardonnay, because that's the law. Great wines for a high acidity and very little oak. And then I'm going to drop to a second to Beaujolais. Beaujolais is the red wine area that I was talking about in Burgundy, and that's the Gamay grape. It's not Pinot Noir, but everything else as you move on, and primarily red, the Mâconnais. And I think at Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving is over, but the holidays are still here. One of the great values in all wine, not just French wine, is a wine called Macon. It's abbreviated from Mâconnais, and it's 100% Chardonnay. We're talking about under $20, and you can get a producer like Louis Latour or Jadot or somebody like that, and go to your store and look for a Macon. And then the Côte Chalonnais, a little bit smaller area, but red and whites. Then you get up to the area. This is it. This is God's gift to you and me for the grape variety Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And this is where that Côte d'Or, which is broken down into the Côte de Beaune and the Côte de Nuits, is where everybody in the world went to try to make Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And so you can imagine, we're talking about hundreds of years of understanding their land and their terroir, a word that it actually doesn't have a meaning from French to English, but it means the soil, but it also means the slope. Matter of fact, Côte d'Or means golden slope. I wonder why it's called golden, because of how expensive the wines are right now. When I went there back in 1975, it was nothing going on. It was a sleepy little place, and then people just found wine somehow, and they found Burgundy and they wanted to go to it. But this is what I call, I'm going to taste it again. Everybody, if you got a chance, let's try the one. I always like to try one a second time. And you might be watching me. I swirl around my mouth. First of all, it's good for my mouth, I think. But I'm trying to get it to all my taste buds, and keep this in mind. And something I learned early on, that there's nothing tastes alike. Nothing tastes alike. And some of you, and this is how it's categorized, by the way, some of you are non-tasters. You don't have the same amount of taste buds as the person who's a taster, normal taster. And then there are the super tasters, and super tasters have all of these taste buds. Not a good thing for wine, by the way. And you might know who you are, because spices or something hot doesn't work for you. Most, by the way, 50% of all human beings are tasters. The other 25% non-tasters and 25% super tasters. I think I fall in the middle. I kept it in my mouth, because you just don't smell with your nostrils, which we all think we do. As a matter of fact, what I've done, I started studying wines in geography and history and classifications. Probably over the last 25 years, I've studied this, the olfactory, understanding what it's all about, sense of smell, because you can only taste in life. Anybody want to throw out some of the things that you can taste in life? Maybe we should do that, Allison. We're going to ask him to give us some things. What's a taste? Give me any taste that you have. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much. Salt is one. Thank you, Allison. I didn't think that you were going to do that, but that's fine. By the way, there's no salt in wine. So now I'm down, and I'm going to let you know there's only 4 tastes in life. In life, not in wine. Sweet, sour, bitter, and salt. Sweet, sour, bitter, and salt. I just said there's no salt. There's actually not any bitterness, for example, in the Taittinger, because bitterness is created by high alcohol and tannin. And that's not what you're going to find in the Champagne. So there's only 2 possible tastes in Champagne. In the Chardonnay, maybe a little bit more, but the big question is a little bit more bitterness at the end, because it does have high alcohol and it is aged in oak. But the bottom line here is, how many things can you smell? and we do this all day long. We enjoy our wine, we enjoy our food, but how many things can you actually smell? Nobel Prize for Medicine, I'm going to say 18 years ago right now, came up with a number, and it's 10,000. They isolated 10,000 different smells. And what you're down to here right now, just to break it easy, the average person can smell 2,000 smells. And so that gives you a little idea. It's much more important what's going on in the smell. So why do I put it in my mouth and swish it around? Because you think you're just doing with your nostrils. You're going up here through the nasal passage. That's another area that the sense of the aromas and the smells are going to go up to the olfactory and back to the limbic system. And believe me, you want to be part of the limbic system because that's all about pleasure and also memory. The limbic system is the oldest part of the brain. Anyhow, I'm getting carried away. I'd like to go to the next wine, if I may. And Allison, you had asked a question about, let's come back to Allison right now. Allison, I just want to make sure, you're just sitting there in Mexico City having a great time, and we're working here. So we have any questions so far from our group?
We do actually. Jim Graves was wondering why you held the champagne bottle at such an angle when you opened it.
Well, first of all, I want it flat. Oh, holding it there, control.
Yeah.
Oh, totally control. I want to have it in one hand, and plus, by the way, notice it's facing away from me and anybody else. It's going to shoot off to the side, not in my face. So, again, it's so Windows on the World. After I left the Canal House, because the Canal House, as you just saw, was there from 19 to 25. Then I went to work for another magician. I've always felt that John Novi was the what's the word? The first to do a farm to table in the United States, 1969. And if you ever want to go back, we can talk about it. All of our people that are on here, he was the first one to do it, and all fresh, all organic. I would go with him to the gardens and get the fruits and get the vegetables, and that's how it was done. Then I went down to Windows on the World with another magical person, Joe Baum, who created the Four Seasons restaurant in 1959. I know you weren't around, Allison. I don't think you were around. And I was just a little kid then. And 300 other restaurants in New York and around the world. So I got to work with those guys as well. So I learned a little bit about champagne, and there was plenty of champagne because it was a celebration restaurant, Windows on the World. Any other questions?
Well, I wanted to comment on two things in the chat. First of all, George Lemon said he opened his champagne with a saber, which is fantastic and actually a party trick that I love to share with friends. And secondly, Jim Graves commented that his white Burgundy is a 2016 Maison Champy Bernard Veugelès.
Yeah.
And Kevin can address this, but when you have a wine that's very similar, it's just because you're in California, and so they were sourcing for you to have the closest best wine to what everyone has, basically according to Kevin's standard.
Yeah, that's something, just so you know, as I mentioned earlier, my partner is wine.com. So all these wines that you receive from, we're talking about the country here. They have 7 warehouses. I try to match, but they always come up with a replacement, which I approve. And you're very lucky to have a 2016, because that's really right now. Seriously, it's right there, and the wine is there. But anyhow, we'll come back to you in a second. Let's go to the Rhone right now. We're moving along here, and one of my favorite wines of all time is called including, you'll see when I show you the wine list from the Canal House, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and the Rhone Valley. As I said, moving on down, way down here, you can see there's a northern and southern Rhone. And some of the most famous wines is one called Hermitage there. It's considered to be one of the top wines in the world, which helps everything else if you want to try Saint Joseph at a much lower price, or Crozes Hermitage. And those wines up there in the northern Rhone, which we're talking, look where we are, Mediterranean Sea, the northern Rhone is primarily the Syrah grape. But now we move southern Rhone, and there's the Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And now I'm talking about Grenache. And everybody, I don't know if a lot of people know Grenache. One of my favorite grapes, Cabernet Sauvignon, is my favorite grape, but the Grenache grape, or Garnacha. We were talking about sabering, and my son got married in Rioja this summer at Marqués de Riscal in Rioja, and he sabered. He sabered off the top of it. By the way, I'm not suggesting that you do that. There is a technique to it. I've done it. I'd rather just open it the other way, but congratulations, you're still alive. Okay, Chateauneuf du Pape. Then there's another one called Gigondas. By the way, one of the great rosés of the world is not from Provence, but it's from the Rhone Valley, right outside of Avignon. And we're talking about Tavel. And so you can see and by the way, one of the great values, I just mentioned Macon from Burgundy, and everyone thinks these French wine prices are crazy, but a Côte du Rhône, or actually go a little bit further to Côte du Rhône Village. You can see it up there. You got Côte du Rhône, which primarily is what Rhone Valley is all about, but it's a blend of Syrah and Grenache, and you get a great producer and you're off to town. Okay, here we go right now. We are in the Rhone Valley. Les Pellières is the name of the producer. And by the way, we're going back into the 15th century right now. And this wine is actually, if you take a look at the bottle, it's brought in by a guy named Kermit Lynch. Once you see Kermit Lynch's name on the bottle, you can bet that this is organic, if not biodynamic. Now this is and actually it's got that funky earthiness to it. By the way, the color, because I want to look at the color. Can you actually see through the wine? I look at that. By the way, I'm looking through my hand. I'm down here looking through it. I got it from the top. I'm not going up here to God. I'm going down here to my hand. And what do I see here right now? It's hard to see through it. Why do I bring this up? Because if you can see through wine, any grape, anywhere, it's ready to drink. Now the question comes up, this wine I cannot see through, so it's marginal if I can see through it. So that's the big question of the night. And the next one coming up, that's going to be even more color. Should you drink it or not? And I'm asking the question to everybody, are you going to drink it anyhow? It might not be ready to drink, but are you going to drink it anyhow? I certainly hope so. But get ready. This is actually 90% Grenache and 10% like Mourvedre, just minor grape, but it's 90% Grenache. Smell it once. Wow, that is wild grapes. That's wild blackberry. Wild black cherry. But wild, it's like you're out in the woods. But let's get the full impact. Put your hand over the top. Hand over the top. And I know this looks funny. I maybe don't want to do it in a rest. I do it all the time. I don't think maybe you want to do it every time and then smell. Get ready. This is going to be overpowering and beautiful. Smell it. Whoa. That is such a difference, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly hope you start doing this with everything. I certainly hope you start doing it with your coffee in the morning. Your orange juice is going to smell so much better. And this is powerful. 14.5% alcohol as well. Not a lot of oak, believe it or not. That richness, by the way, look at the color of the wine, the richness. Toast, everybody. Toast to whoever you're with. I guess that's the only people you can toast to. Or you can toast to me or Allison. Give it a try. Kermit Lynch, the man, he's got a store. It's out in Berkeley. And by the way, the second person, I think, after John Novi was Alice Waters at Chez Panisse in Berkeley. And they got together and Kermit created this. He's got a store there. He's got books out on the wine route. Fascinating stuff. This is strong. This is a wine, by the way, the first two, I could sit back tonight, put on the fireplace and drink the champagne. I could definitely easily have the white Burgundy that we have, the Louis Latour. And this wine, though, no way. I need something very strong with this to have with this. Powerful. What I'm looking for a balance of the fruit in the wine, the alcohol of the fruit in the wine to the food that I'm going to have. And it just hit me right now what it should be. And there was a restaurant in New York City called La Côte Basque. And it was actually the first French restaurant I ever went to with John Novi, actually, back in like 1970 or 71, because it was a 4-star restaurant at that time. And John nor I had any idea what a 4-star meant. And I remember going down to the city as this country bumpkins and going to this La Côte Basque. And we didn't even know how to tip. That's how bad things were. Anyway, I can't go back to everything. We had a lot of experiences at the Canal House. So this wine reminds me of going to La Côte Basque, and the food that I'm going to have is going to be called cassoulet. And you'll have to understand what cassoulet is. If you don't, I can't do it for you right now, but it stays with you for a week, so you don't have to eat again. And this is an earthy, big, powerful wine, and again, made organically. I love the taste, and it's very dry. And that comes to, the champagne's ready to drink. It's not going to get any better. Our white Burgundy is 2019. It's not going to get any better. This is a wine that you can put away. And I started collecting wines. I started collecting wines probably in the 80s because I didn't have any money in the 70s because I was still paying off that student loan. Remember the student loans? Anyhow, about before the pandemic began. So in my New Year's resolution in January of 2020, I'm going to drink my old bottles of wine, and I'm going to go through all of them and drink them all. And I've gone through 1,000 bottles now in my cellar, and I have new friends that I never thought I would have. And I want you to know that Peter Beanstalk is here all the time now. Helen, if you think he's coming up here for a canal museum, like for a meeting, he's not doing that. He's coming to my house for lunch. He's coming to my house for dinner, so he can raid the wine cellar. Anyhow, powerful. Do we have any more questions before I go to the last wine, Allison? I'm looking at my time. I'm going to try to keep to my 1 hour limit that I have here right now. But what do we got?
Sure. We do have a question following up on the James Bond quote about temperature, about what temperature you should serve red wines. If it's not room temperature, how would you go about that?
Well, you're all welcome to my cellar. Only kidding, because a lot of these people are local. They'll be here, they'll be here at 8 o'clock. Hi, we're here now to go to your cellar. And I actually have 3 cellars in my house. I have a built-in cellar that has got the air conditioning, that whole thing there right now. I don't know how many bottles it holds, but my regular, it's an old house. It's built in 1930, and the cellar is all stone, and it maintains a temperature. The highest it will go, even in the summer, 65 degrees. It actually varies between 62 and 65. And that's sort of what I'm looking for. Room temperature, what's room temperature anyhow? Is it 68? Is it 70? I don't know. I don't want my wines there. And I'm going to say that if you don't have a cellar, put the wines in the refrigerator for even an hour before, maybe 45 minutes before you try them. Bring the temperature down. In the old days, the worst thing was white wine was served too cold because everybody was drinking white wines and they freeze it. It would come out with, it was almost ice in the glass. The worst thing right now, because everybody's drinking reds, everybody's drinking more red wine than they're drinking white wine, is warm red wine. And, a lot of restaurants don't keep their wines in good condition. Next to the kitchen is a great place to keep your wines. And there are some great restaurants that have done that. So that's, I think, by the way, your refrigerator is 38 to 42 degrees. That's normal. So, that's how I would keep them. So
Great.
Ready for our last wine? And actually, we have some other things that I wanted to talk about. And we always run out of time here right now. But I don't want to forget all of our slides, because you know what? Let's drop back to the old days at the Canal House.
Sure.
My hair was much longer than it is right now. And so I want to, the memories. And by the way, I don't know where you got some of those pictures, Bill and Courtney, of me sitting in the wine cellar. I don't know where it is. Well, here we go. This is 1971. Again, I have now taken classes on wine. Only one was at the Waldorf Astoria. It was a fantastic class. It lasted 16 weeks. 10 were on wine. By the way, just the atmosphere of going to the Waldorf Astoria in a private room at 20 years old. I mean, this got me into the whole thing as well. And then, by the way, the next day, that was on a Monday night. The next day, I taught that class for Ulster County Community College on Tuesday from everything I learned on Monday. And then it was 4 weeks of distilled spirits and 1 week on beer. But here we go. There's the Châteauneuf-du-Pape I talked about. Yes, see, 69, one of the great all-time vintages of Châteauneuf-du-Pape for $6.25. Ladies and gentlemen, that's for the bottle. That is not a wine by the glass. And then you see some other wines there again. Mouton Rothschild, well, that was expensive, $14.25. And then Chateau Latour, my favorite wine of all time, $20 was a good time to be in wine. And then I think we have a picture. I like this picture because it's in the kitchen that was described before. You even see a refrigerator behind me. That was the small kitchen that we were like 8 waiters were in there with the dishwasher as well. I just want you to notice that I am smelling a cork. I was doing it back then. I was a cork dork back in the old days. And thank God I don't have that hair anymore. But moving along to our last wine, we're going to, let's show a little slide here right now on Bordeaux to see where we're at. And we're changing grape varieties. And we went from the Grenache, which is big in style, but less oak than you're going to have in this next wine, because Bordeaux, without question, and you just saw my wine list. That was it. That was my red wine list in 1971. There were no California wines on there at all. Did that change? Yes. When I hitchhiked to California in 72 and I came back to the Canal House, then you started seeing wines. And again, I'm going back to that dinner that I did last week in Philly. The number one wine that I saw on menus, by the way, JFK, French wines, Jackie Onassis, all French wines. And then Lyndon Johnson came in, and Lyndon Johnson said, nope, we're only doing American wines. What did I see there for Cabernets? Beaulieu. The Beaulieu Cabernet Sauvignon was the number one wine that I saw for the next 35 years on state dinners. As a matter of fact, we have the French president here. And so all the talk is, what are they having? Well, they're having lobster. And they're having wine. By the way, Biden doesn't drink. I don't know how they get through that. Neither does Trump. I'm not going to go there right now. I can talk sex, but I'm not going to go there either. Oh, I can talk sex. Let me talk sex to you right now. Is that all right? Ladies and gentlemen, I've had 3 glasses of wine. You've had 3 glasses of wine. I just want the women to know that are out there that they are the number one consumers of wine in the world. They're also the number one buyers of wines in the world. And they also have a better sense of smell than men do. So thank you to all the women that are out there in politics, just so you know, because we just finished a long election. It seems like a long election. I've never gotten so much mail in my life or texts from people I don't know. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're conservative. I don't care if you're a liberal and you're Democrat, whatever it is. We all get along after the 3rd glass of wine. So even if you didn't like the people you're with right now, they're probably better. You like them better than you did before. Okay, that's politics, that's sex, and aging. Aging. We didn't talk about aging. Well, okay. I just said wine number one, the Taittinger is ready to drink. The Burgundy is ready to drink. The Rhone Valley needs time. And I'm going to tell you right now, I know the next wine is going to need time, because a good Bordeaux, I'm talking about 15 years after its vintage. But most wines, 90% of all wines made in the world today are meant to be drunk within 1 year. Let me do that again. 90% of all wines made in the world today are meant to be and made to be drunk within 1 year. The statistic on when people buy wines is when they go to a store in the United States, it's consumed within 48 hours, which is good. Another 9% of all wines should never see more than 5 years. Let me bottom line that. 99% of all wines should be consumed within 5 years. So as I did my wine cellar, I would hope tonight or this weekend, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you have a couple of nights to do this, that you are going to raid your wine cellar and drink the wines that you should have been drinking, but you left them there for a special occasion. Special occasion is this weekend. And keep this in mind. I'm supposed to be this wine expert. 75% of those wines that I've had from my wine cellar were fantastic, unbelievable. But another 25% were past their time, should have been consumed earlier, etc. Okay, we go to our last wine. We're now talking about the primary grape of this wine is Cabernet Sauvignon. And if we can go back to that Bordeaux map, if Allison take a look at it. In the meantime, while she's doing that, look at the color. You cannot see through it. And again, it's got that purple color on there. It's still a very young wine. Chateau Gloria is one of the unsung heroes of Bordeaux in a way, and I'll tell you why in a second. It's from Saint-Julien. It's actually from the Médoc. You see where that is there? Right now, there's 65 different appellations. I'm just showing you a few here right now. But the Médoc is what we call the left bank, and to the right is the right bank of the river. And on the left bank, called the Médoc, the primary grape is Cabernet Sauvignon. On the right bank, where you see Pomerol and Saint-Emilion, which I should remind anybody, I'm doing a big masterclass on Saint-Emilion on Monday, still time to get in, is Merlot grape. And then you have regions like Pessac-Léognan or Graves, and you can see where the city of Bordeaux is. It's like right there. And then the greatest, or one of the greatest sweet wines, it's funny because the wine that George Washington drank and Thomas Jefferson was Madeira. They called George Washington the Madeira man because he had 6 glasses, and it wasn't the dry stuff, it was the sweet stuff. But there's some great wines like that from the island of Madeira in Portugal. Sauternes is what I'm talking about. And one of the most long-lived Sauternes, I've had Sauternes over 100 years old. So anyhow, back to this wine here. This is a blend, and most wines are going to be in Bordeaux are blends. Very rare that you're going to have 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. So we had a blend in the Taittinger. That was, again, the Chardonnay, the Pinot Noir, the Pinot Meunier. It was 100% in the 100% Chardonnay in the white Burgundy. 90% of the Grenache But this wine here right now, smell it, please. Woo, that is so beautiful. I'm sorry, I'm hopefully have some of my 60% Cabernet Sauvignon. And you get that. And 30% Merlot. Then they put a little Petit Verdot and a little bit of Cabernet Franc in there. Black fruits. This is actually, it's interesting which wine I should have served first. Should I have served the Rhone wine and then the Bordeaux? And the Rhone wine actually had more alcohol, but I chose the Bordeaux for lots of reasons. You want it all, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, I'm not a magician. I just picked this up a long time ago. The ultimate aromas, and this is aromatherapy. You think it's a wine glass, but it's aromatherapy. Ready? Smell it. And Allison, I don't know how much time is left, but if it's possible to put up, their favorites of the reds, I would be curious if we could do that. Which was your favorite red wine? We might be of the two. I don't know if that's possible, but if it happens, you'll let me know. Black currant, cassis. And I didn't have this in the previous one, but blueberries or bramble. And now, one more time, last wine of the evening. I hope you had a good time. We're gonna have a little time for questions if we have it, but toast, please, and give the wine a try. Leave it in your mouth for 3 seconds. Can you see the difference? It's more of an elegant style, where the Grenache and the Gigondas were bulky. It's heavy. It's like, it was a heavyweight. That's I should buy Floyd Patterson. Some of you might remember Floyd Patterson, who actually lived in New Paltz and taught at the college, actually, and that's when I did. So Chateau Gloria. This, you're not going to see, there's many classifications of Bordeaux. One is the most famous in the world. It's called the 1855 classification. And it took 61 chateaus, but Napoleon wanted to do this in 1855 for, they call it the World's Exposition, which became the World's Fair. And every department of France would send in, oh, this is the best cheese we have. And Bordeaux sent in their best wines. And Chateau Gloria was not part of that classification, but the guy who created it, Henri Martin, there's always a backstory. Backstories are good and they're fun stories. Backstory, he was the mayor of Saint-Germain. Anyhow, he created Chateau Gloria, but then he bought all the land that was classified from classified chateaus. Let me give you an example. If you're into Bordeaux, Bécheval, Léval-Poifferet, Léval-Barton, Gordon-Rose, Duc-de-Cailloux, these are all rated in that 1855 classification. So when I say unsung hero, this is it. There's an elegance to this one. And could I suffer through this wine tonight? The answer is yes, I could. And this is also 2016. Hopefully you have 2016. I don't know. I asked if you didn't have 2000, but you don't have to worry. Bordeaux, 2015, 2016, 2018, 2019, 2020 were great vintages. By the way, that works for the Rhone Valley. And you're going to ask me why was it? God, ladies and gentlemen, God gave great weather to a place that had beautiful soil and great viticulture and great winemaking, but in the northern and southern Rhone, unbelievable over the last 6 or 7 years. And the same thing with Bordeaux. I'm going to give this wine another try because I love it so much. And like I said, it's one of the great wines. And by the way, there's over 5,000 chateaus in Bordeaux. And I'm going to pinpoint this as like maybe in the top 30 wines, especially in the top 20 in the 2016 vintage. A toast to all of you. And then we're going to come back to Allison. Allison, I know if we did I miss any of my slides tonight? If not, we'll just carry on and come on and tell us what we need to know about the end of our show here right now.
We did not miss any slides, so we got through them all. I don't really think there's that much more. We have some people writing in what their favorites were. We had one for the Rhone, and then we had one for the Bordeaux. So.
Well, I'm not, normally sometimes we forget to do this because this is sort of like not part of our class structure, but we ask people, which one do they like the best? It's interesting. I can't drink the Gigondas without food. And if you still have the taste and take a last taste of the Gloria, and what am I getting in there? And I'm sorry, I wanted to talk to you about champagne. What about champagne that you like about champagne? What was it?
I've been to Reims. I mean, and also I was lucky enough to go to Burgundy this summer. So I did a road trip through Burgundy, which was really nice.
And how would you describe Burgundy as somebody who's never been there?
Heaven, but I don't I don't know. Are they a wine person?
We got it.
Basically,
Yeah.
I went in July and you're just driving through vineyards and sunflower fields for hours. It's
Mhm.
just vineyards and sunflower fields or lavender fields as you get closer down to Rhone and Provence, and it's beautiful. It's just food and wine. I also more affordable. All of the Burgundy wines that you can buy there just make you feel so upset about the prices that we have outside of Burgundy for the same wines.
So are you moving there or are you going to stay in Mexico City?
Well, there's better wine in Burgundy, but I do like Mexico City for my lifestyle.
Okay, so maybe they'll find something there. Why I wanted to bring that up, if you still have the taste of the Chateau Gloria, my mouth is totally dried out. And you know this from the wines that we've had in the class, Cabernet especially, like a Beaujolais. No, there's no tannins in those wines. This is tannin, and it's drying out your mouth. And you actually, if you're me or whatever, you don't have any saliva left. And so what you need for a wine like this, by the way, with age, the tannin drops out. It actually, you can see it in a 20-year-old Bordeaux. It drops out and turns into a sediment. But this wine still is full of tannins. And it's now tannin is a natural preservative. It comes from the skins, pits, stems. You put wine in oak, and this is like 18 months in oak, the Chateau Gloria, and a lot of it new oak, French barrique. The bottom line here is, if I had to have this wine tonight, I would have it with something like a sirloin steak. And the reason being is the fat. I want more fat and protein. That fat and protein breaks down all those tannins in the wine. Otherwise, I say, put the wine away for another 10 years. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Allison and all of you for coming on this. And as I said, I have 996 to go. And so if you have something that you want to do, I'll do this every Friday night if you want. Hey, that's a good way to have Friday. TGIF. I was actually with Alan Stillman, who created TGIF, for lunch this week. He also created Smith and Walensky. Interesting guy, 86 years old, got everything going for him. A toast. I think again, I'm gonna go with the Gloria today, except because Le Côte Basque doesn't exist anymore. I can't have my Cassoulet. And a toast to everyone involved with the Dupuy. I say the Dupuy Canal House, and then I'm going to say the Delaware and Hudson Canal Museum. Thank you, and we'll see you all soon. Happy holidays to everybody. Peace.